A secret royal document has ripped straight through the heart of the British government, and the shock is unlike anything Westminster has seen in years. The memo didn't come from an advisor or a distant official, it came from Prince William himself. And what he wrote could bring Keir Starmer's political future crashing down. This is not gossip. This is not barroom chatter. This is real. At exactly 4:30 this afternoon, a confidential 12-page constitutional briefing was leaked to the BBC, and the moment it landed in Downing Street, the entire building went into meltdown. Phones rang non-stop. Staff sprinted from office to office. Senior aides held emergency huddles in hallways. One word kept repeating behind closed doors: catastrophic. Here's the part that has everyone frozen. William's memo isn't polite, cautious, or symbolic. It's an accusation, a direct claim that the Prime Minister has crossed constitutional lines that no leader is allowed to cross. Lawyers inside government are whispering that the 5 charges laid out in the document aren't just serious, they're airtight. They say there's almost nothing the legal team can do to counter them. And if you want to see how deep this crisis goes, buckle up, because the story only gets darker. When this memo quietly reached number 10 2 days ago, Starmer didn't hesitate. He immediately called a 90-minute emergency meeting. But instead of tackling the constitutional warnings, his inner circle went into political survival mode. Their question wasn't how do we fix this? It was how do we hide it? Within hours, government lawyers started digging through national security laws to find anything that might block the media from reporting the memo. Think about that. The future king raises a constitutional alarm, and the first reaction from the Prime Minister's team is, silence the press. And it didn't stop there. The Cabinet Office sent out a warning to civil servants, telling them that even talking about the memo could violate the Official Secrets Act. Translation: speak a word of this and your career is finished. Why the panic? Because insiders say this isn't a complaint. It's an indictment, a methodical dismantling of the government's entire constitutional program. One senior official put it bluntly: we misjudged him. We thought he'd stay in the ceremonial box. He didn't. He knows the Constitution better than they do. Now that the memo has exploded into public view, the 5 accusations inside it are out for everyone to see. The first allegation, spelled out on page 3, is seismic. It claims Starmer attempted to take control of royal prerogative powers, authorities the Crown has held for over 600 years. These include approving ministers and giving royal consent to new legislation. Starmer's allies say these powers are symbolic. William's document argues the opposite, that they exist as a guardrail against governments that overreach. Remove them, he writes, and you strip away Britain's last defense against political abuse. The memo even cites cases going back to 1611, arguing that Parliament cannot simply grab powers reserved for the monarch. This isn't democratic reform, he warns. It's a constitutional coup. Constitutional experts aren't taking this lightly. Professor Alastair Finch, one of the most respected scholars in the field, told the BBC that the memo is constitutional dynamite. His words, not mine. He says the government is trying to build a new system on foundations that don't exist, a level of executive overreach not seen since the 17th century. Another advisor close to the king put it even more bluntly: the Prime Minister is acting like the leader of a republic. He isn't. He serves the Crown. And according to officials watching this unfold, Starmer's legal team is boxed in with nowhere to run. But the second accusation in the memo hits even harder. On page 5, William charges the government with neglecting, even disrespecting, the Commonwealth. This matters more than most people realize. King Charles isn't just the monarch of the UK. He is the head of state for 14 countries, including Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. When Starmer drafted his sweeping constitutional changes, he didn't consult a single one of those nations. Not one. William's memo asks a brutal question: did the Prime Minister seek counsel from His Majesty's other realms? The answer is simple: he didn't even bring it up. Foreign officials are furious. A leaked message from the Australian High Commission calls the move reckless and deeply disrespectful. A senior diplomat in Canada wrote, "We share a head of state. You don't rewrite the rules without a conversation. Allies do not behave this way." So this isn't just a British political scandal anymore. It's a global diplomatic embarrassment. And behind the curtain, things are turning poisonous. A leaked Labour backbench WhatsApp message sent earlier today said, "If the Commonwealth is upset, fine. Maybe it's time they all became republics." That's not modernization. That's wrecking a centuries-old alliance. And tonight, Prince William has dragged the whole situation into the light. The third accusation is where this whole saga shifts from political drama to something genuinely unsettling. On page 7 of the leaked memo, Prince William levels a stunning claim that the government has twisted the civil service into supporting reforms senior officials privately believe are unconstitutional. According to people inside Whitehall, some of the very individuals tasked with defending these changes admitted they don't actually believe the reforms are lawful, yet they're being pushed to justify them anyway. That crosses a sacred line. Civil servants swear loyalty to the crown, not to whichever party happens to be in power. William's memo reminds them of that oath and essentially gives them cover to resist political pressure. But buried deeper in the document is something far more alarming, something that was never meant to see daylight. William reveals a concealed clause in the draft legislation, one that would hand Starmer sweeping authority to demote or fire any civil servant who raises concerns about the reforms. It's not a management tool. It's a purge mechanism. A legal weapon designed to silence anyone brave enough to say, "This isn't constitutional." William calls it an attack on democratic norms, the kind of move associated with governments sliding into authoritarianism, not a modern parliamentary state. The memo exposes a disturbing truth. When ministers realized their plans wouldn't pass legal scrutiny, they didn't correct them. They built a system to punish those who noticed. That is executive power at its most dangerous, and William has dragged it into the light. The fourth accusation strikes with surgical precision. On page 9, William says the government misled the public to win power. His legal team dissected Labour's entire election manifesto and found nothing, not a hint, suggesting they intended to rewrite the constitutional framework or weaken royal authority. Labour entered office with roughly a third of the national vote, promising reassurance and stability. Now, William argues, they're using that narrow victory to force through a radical overhaul they never dared mention on the campaign trail. In plain terms, he's accusing the Prime Minister of winning office on one promise and governing with another. And the fallout inside Labour is already visible. A growing number of MPs are breaking ranks, saying privately, and in some cases publicly, that voters never agreed to this. The public clearly agrees. A fresh YouGV poll taken within the last 12 hours shows Starmer's approval rating collapsing by 15 points. And when people were asked whether the government has a mandate to change the constitution, 78% said no. The backlash is spreading like wildfire. A petition opposing the reforms had about 460,000 signatures just 48 hours ago. By 6 o'clock this evening, it had surged past 1.2 million, one of the fastest-growing petitions Britain has ever seen. And in this showdown between Starmer and the monarchy, the country appears to be siding squarely with Prince William. Then comes the fifth and final accusation, the one with the power to shake the foundations of the United Kingdom itself. On page 11, William warns that Starmer's reforms risk tearing apart national unity. His argument is stark. The Crown is the only institution that binds England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland together above party politics. Undermine it, he says, and you hand separatist movements exactly what they've wanted for decades. William accuses the Prime Minister of prioritizing ideological goals over the survival of the Union, a charge as heavy as any in the memo. Just minutes after the leak, a senior Conservative MP who reviewed the document said, "It's the most brilliant constitutional analysis I've ever seen." William has outmaneuvered him. Starmer now has to choose, satisfy the radicals in his party or protect the Union. He cannot do both. That single comment captures the gravity of this moment. Britain is standing at the brink of a constitutional conflict unlike anything in living memory. Starmer has no safe path forward. If he dismisses the memo outright, he looks authoritarian, a prime minister brushing aside a legitimate warning from the heir to the throne. But if he retreats, even slightly, he risks revolt from his own MPs, many of whom have spent years pushing for reforms that fundamentally weaken the monarchy's role. Meanwhile, Prince William has stepped forward with deliberate precision, not as a politician, but as a defender of the country's core principles. He has cast himself as the protector of the Constitution, the Commonwealth, and the unity of the United Kingdom. This isn't an act of ambition. It's an act of preservation. And based on the reaction across the country, the public understands that. Across talk shows, social feeds, and newspaper columns, you can feel the shift. The government's attempt to portray William's intervention as inappropriate has fallen flat. To many Britons, this isn't about party politics anymore. It's about the rules that safeguard the nation, and who will uphold them when elected officials overreach. What we are witnessing is the opening chapter of the most significant constitutional crisis modern Britain has ever seen. The stakes couldn't be higher. The monarchy's neutrality, Parliament's authority, and the country's democratic identity are all being tested at once. So the real question isn't simply what comes next. It's much deeper than that. What kind of nation will Britain choose to be when this confrontation ends? Will it stand by centuries-old constitutional traditions, or will it allow political ambition to reshape the monarchy's role forever? The answer will determine not only the future of this government, but the balance of power between Crown and Parliament for generations to come. This is no longer a policy dispute. It's a battle over identity, duty, and principle. Every decision made from this point forward will shape the story Britain tells about itself, whether it remains a nation anchored by law and tradition, or one that bends whenever political winds demand it. If you want to follow every turn in this extraordinary clash, make sure to stay with us, because this crisis is only beginning. And before we go, there's one question every Briton will have to wrestle with. Was Prince William right to step into the storm, to defend the Constitution when silence would have been easier? Or should he have stayed completely neutral, maintaining the royal distance expected of him? What's beyond debate is this: the future king has taken his stand. And now Keir Starmer must decide how he plans to respond.